Hello, my name is Will Heron, and I am the Province One coordinator. Welcome to this quarterly gathering of the Province One Becoming Beloved Community Network. This meeting will be recorded and published to our YouTube channel, so if you would not like your screen to appear, please turn off your video. I'm happy to hand the conversation over to James McKim. James is the chair and Province One representative to the Executive Council Committee on Anti-Racism and Reconciliation, as well as the convener for the Becoming Beloved Community Network. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Will, and welcome everyone. So happy to see your faces here on this sunny-ish, mostly sunny Sunday afternoon. So we hold this space, and Will's put the agenda in the chat. We try to hold this space every quarter for people from across the province to share what they are doing around becoming a beloved community, share what challenges they are facing, and see if we can help each other find resources or solutions to the challenges that we are facing, and particularly in this challenging time. So as you can see by the agenda, we start off with just housekeeping, opening prayer, which I will share in just a moment, and then really conversation. That's what we're about here, is conversation amongst the people who come. So just to open us up, let us pray. The Lord be with you. Gracious and Heavenly Father, you have brought us to this day in this time when we are challenged. And you promised we would be challenged. So give us the strength, O Lord, and give us the grace to live through this challenge and live through these challenging times through love. And especially as our gospel reading discussed just today, help us to understand how to love our enemies, the people who are not like us, because in truth they are like us. So give us the grace and the open heart to do your will, to be your hands and feet in the world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So with that, really wanted to just open it up to giving you all space, giving us all a space to share how we're feeling with this new administration. We can say administration at many levels. At the federal government level, we have a new administration. In the Episcopal Church, we have a new presiding bishop. So a new administration there, with some announcements that just happened this past week that folks may have some feelings about, thoughts about. We want to give you the opportunity to share that as well. And then maybe we can discuss at the diocesan level what might be going on in your diocese, and how we can respond. And actually, you know, what we should first do is just go around and share who we are, where we are, where we attend church. As I said, my name is James McKim. I live in Goffstown, New Hampshire. I attend St. Matthew's Church here in Goffstown. So why don't we also do this invitational style? So I'll invite someone, and then that person can invite the next person, and so on until we are done. So with that, I will invite Constance, who I wasn't sure was going to be here, but glad you're here.
Thank you. My name is Constance Perry, and I am in Peabody, Massachusetts, just north of Boston. And I attend Trinity Church, Copley Square in Boston. And I will invite Will Mabane. Good to see you.
Likewise, Constance. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Will Mebane. I am the ninth rector of St. Barnabas's Church, Episcopal Church in Falmouth, Massachusetts. I'm also co-chair of the Racial Justice Commission here in the Episcopal Diocese of Massachusetts. And I'll invite my co-chair, Carol Moorhead, to introduce herself.
Thank you, Will. Thank you. I'm Reverend Carol Moorhead. I serve at Grace Episcopal Church in Medford, Massachusetts, which is in the Boston area. And as Will said, I serve along with him on the as a co-chair of the Racial Justice Commission of the Diocese of Massachusetts. And I'm pleased to be here. And I will invite Sarah Boyle.
Sarah Boyle, and I attend Christ Church, Greenwich, Connecticut, where Will was at our church for a while, which we remember very nicely. So I just am at the parish level with Christ Church's efforts in becoming beloved community in our church.
And who would you like to invite?
Oh, I have to invite someone. Okay. I would invite Dina Cleaver Bartholomew.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm Dina Cleaver Bartholomew. I'm the canon to the ordinary in the Diocese of Rhode Island and a member of our Center for Reconciliation Advisory Board. And I have another member of our advisory board here, so I would like to invite her, and that's Phyllis Spaziano.
Thank you very much. I'm Phyllis Spaziano. I am a member of the board for the Center for Reconciliation and the Diocesan Council, and I attend St. Luke's in Pawtucket. And I will invite James McKim.
Oh, I've already.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
You
are. I don't know anybody here, so I'm going to invite Diane Wong.
You're on mute, Diane.
So I just came in, so I'm not sure what I'm asked to do.
We're just doing introductions, so where you are and what your parish is, what role you have in becoming beloved community.
So my name is Diane, and I am a director at St. John's, Arlington, here in the Diocese of Massachusetts. And there were several of us together with Dina that we planned the Province One Fostering Emerging Leaders of Leaders of Color. And James has very kindly invited us to participate in this meeting. So here I am.
Excellent, thank you. And we're just invitational style, inviting someone else, but you haven't been here, so you don't know who's gone yet. I will just invite Camilio to introduce.
Great, thank you so much. I go by CJ, but you can call me Camillo if you like. I think I registered that way. I am on I-91 South heading to New York City, which is why I'm not on the screen. I apologize for that. But I'm driving from Burlington, Vermont, which is where I'm currently hailing from. I'm the head of school at Rock Point School within the Diocese of Vermont. I'm on several committees, including Diocesan Council, and chairing the Racial Healing and Justice Committee. And I am grateful to be in this meeting. It's my first time to this gathering. I'll call on Meg Fitch.
Yeah, it should be Meg Vitt. I'm sorry about that. I didn't change my name. I'm transitioning from St. Stephen's Middlebury to St. James Essex Junction in Vermont. And so I'm still co-chairing the Racial Healing Committee at St. Stephen's. And that's probably where I've done most of my work. And I'm also on the Racial Healing and Justice diocesan team. Was I supposed to say something else? Or is that good?
Just introduce or invite
Yes,
the
okay.
next person, and I think
James DeWolf, Harry.
Jim's last.
Oh, and I'm last. Okay, great. Sorry I'm late, but I was coming out of another meeting. I am not new to these meetings, but I am still part of the Center for Reconciliation in the Diocese of Rhode Island. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. I think we've got everybody. Yes, we did. So good to have the representation from across the province. That is absolutely something we strive to make sure we have as we have these discussions. So just want to open it up for our topic as we try to process what's going on with the new administration, how that's impacting us, how it's impacting our work. So open space. Anyone who wants to share what they're feeling or questions or thoughts, please. Or even what you're doing in your diocese to help people through this change in administration.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
If anyone knows, I saw I guess maybe I saw the headline about changing things around, shaking things up a little bit at the national level of the church.
Mhm.
And my concern that I haven't read it, so I'm just wondering if anybody knows, is whether, and I don't know enough about the national church to even know what they're called, so I'm just going to call them departments. And hope that you know what I'm talking about. So the Department for Racial Healing and the Department for Gender Justice, whether they're still intact.
Yeah, Will, you want to?
So I can't speak in concrete terms because I think I also don't know, but I've been following this closely, trying to sort of keep my pulse on what's happening. It seems like those departments are being merged into sort of a single mission focused department. It hasn't been fully announced what the structure or sort of programmatic priorities of the new department are going to be yet. So I think we're in a space of unknowing until sort of the presiding bishop's staff kind of is able to sort of lay out with more with greater fullness what they're doing right now.
Okay, thank you.
But what I heard is specifically racial justice is continuing as part of a merged department, which is sort of a stronger statement than some of the other departments that were sort of transitioned got. So I think I don't know what that means though.
And that's about what I've heard as well. We are in a very ambiguous state right now in terms of the Episcopal Church, and it's been referred in the past as the Episcopal Church, TEC or TEC, and they were trying to get away from use of the phrase TEC, but it is the Episcopal Church and the national office, I guess, is the way we've been discussing it. And Executive Council also just met, so there was a lot of discussion, as I understand it, at Executive Council about just this. How is this going to look? How are we going to operate going forward, given the change in the federal administration?
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, thoughts? How are you all feeling? Like, this is a chance to just share how you're feeling as well as what you're doing.
Well, I can report some good news. I think in the time we're in, everybody appreciates good news when we have it. And that is that we've been working on a new focus for our advisory board. You may not be familiar with the Center for Reconciliation, but during the pandemic, it was an independent 501c3 that was related to the diocese, but like so many nonprofits, really lost its funding during the pandemic, so became a ministry of the diocese. And we've reconstituted with an advisory board, and we've sort of been trying to find our way post-pandemic. And we are initiating a new Traces of the Trade initiative, with which James DeWolf Perry, who's in Traces of the Trade, is most familiar. And we actually had a congregation write to us this past week and say, independent of this work that we've been doing to prepare and find facilitators to host the viewing of the film followed by discussions, they felt called to do this on their own and wanted to know if we could help them, and they wanted to do it with several other neighboring congregations. So the fact that there's movement afoot in the diocese to have this film previewed and then followed by a discussion with facilitation, and the fact that that coordinates with what we've been working on sort of behind the scenes tells us that the spirit is afoot, and we are happy to see it. But I think for our people, it was really sort of starting over with the understanding that, yes, this does apply to us here in Rhode Island, and it isn't just some abstract concern out there in the culture. This starts with us looking at how we have experienced and are still experiencing racism in our own midst, in our own churches.
Great. Well, telling the truth, first pillar of becoming beloved community. And that leads me to ask, how many of your dioceses have had a session where there's been a showing of traces of the trade and a discussion afterwards? I know we've done that here in the Diocese of New Hampshire, but how many others of you have had such an experience? See, Constance raises her hand. Anyone else?
We didn't do it on the diocesan level, but we did it at St. Stephen's. It was a parish initiative.
James, if I
Constance,
might
yeah.
add, I am my husband, Dane Perry, who is, we have my nephew, James. Hi, James.
Hi, Constance.
We have been, for the past 20 years, taken traces of the trade around country and many different venues, and facilitating conversations. And one of the things that I think I was concerned about is, since the outcome of the election, would people be reticent to either to cancel screenings that had been scheduled, or we might not receive invitations. And in fact, we are continuing to receive invitations to screen different parts of the country. And the conversations that we're having have been extremely powerful. So I think the need is still there, and I think people are recognizing that. The other thing that I neglected to say when I introduced myself, I am co-chair of the Reparations Fund Committee in the Diocese of Massachusetts. And we were just named by our former diocesan bishop, Alan Gates, this past fall. And we have been meeting since November. And the work is moving on. As we said, the train has left the station, and we're doing the work. And this is a way that I think in our diocese that we are recognize the importance of reparations, and feel even more committed to ensuring that reparations occurs in across our diocese to African Americans and Afro-Caribbeans who we have targeted in our area.
Great, thank you for that. And it's so good to hear that the requests for the movie showing and discussions have continued, even in the face of the pushback that this administration has put forth, and many have followed on. And also good to hear about reparations. I mean, many of our quarterly meetings last year were focused on reparations. We shared what was going on, and I actually co-chaired the Reparations Task Force for the Diocese of New Hampshire, and we put forth a resolution that was passed this past diocesan convention. That was a pretty well thought out plan that we put together for doing the work of reparations across the diocese. I think all of the dioceses have had discussions, if not resolutions, around reparations. So that's something we'd like to share in these meetings. Where are folks with reparations, and as well as how does the new administration potentially impact our work? So others, what's on your mind? What's on your heart? What are you feeling? What are you sensing from those in your diocese? What are they feeling?
This is Phyllis from Rhode Island. I really feel as though people are looking for leadership and guidance. I get that sense from Episcopalians, but also from non-Episcopalians, that when Bishop Budd preached her sermon at the prayer service, that she really galvanized people within and without the church, and that people are hungry for ways to counter what is coming and what has been stated. There's a lot of grassroots of boycotting, places that have rolled back DEI initiatives. I know I just canceled my membership to BJ's Wholesale Club, and I just enrolled in Costco. But that feels so small. And I think that there's an opportunity to really give people a voice, and also to give them a tangible ways to preserve the dignity of fellow parishioners, fellow citizens, and counter what is happening and what we fear is coming. And there's a lot of fear, not just within the migrant communities, but I sense a lot of fear with coworkers. I work in long-term care, and I have a multiracial coworkers. There's a lot of fear.
That fear is real, and I think I also sense this desire for leadership, this hunger for leadership, and ways that individuals can step up, make a difference. And I hear people thinking that their little actions don't make a difference, but if we have enough people taking those little actions, that can have a huge impact. And that's really what the boycotts are about. I think I should just give one note of caution on those boycotts. Another role that I have is I'm president of the Manchester branch of the NAACP. And our national office, our president, Derek Johnson, has said that the NAACP has taken a position that they're not actually going to be participating in boycotts. And the reason is because of the collateral damage that is done to people of color who are likely going to suffer from the economic impact of these boycotts. And I appreciate that. And I think I would take things maybe a little bit further, in the sense that it's not just boycotting those vendors, companies who are pushing back and being harmful, but we should be frequenting businesses and establishments that are owned by people of color. So we support them at the same time. What else? What else is on your mind here? What are you thinking as we have this discussion?
James, this is Will in Massachusetts, and probably like many folks, what I'm feeling is a bit of shell shock, although what is happening was anticipated even long before the election. This was forecast. The comment was made that there's going to be a lot of pain, and that So what? You're just going to have to endure the pain. But my concern is maybe on a different level or a different place. I am concerned with what's happening with the restructuring in the Episcopal Church. It troubles me that racial reconciliation and justice work is being merged into another department. And I think there's enough work around that needs to be done, and it demands standing alone, working with other departments, but not being swaddled up into some other, as Will said, some yet undefined structure. That concerns me. And it also concerns me that a number of the individuals, the first individuals within the Episcopal Church to lose their positions were people of color. The treasurer is a black man. Stephanie Spellers, a black woman. Other people within their departments are black people who now no longer have jobs. So I'm concerned about that. And since this is a province discussion, I wanted to just put that on the table. I am really concerned. I don't know. I have not seen yet that the Episcopal Church, Bishop Mary Ann Buddy's comments notwithstanding, I have not seen the kind of strong statements in the public square that I need as an Episcopalian, as a follower of Jesus Christ, coming from the Episcopal Church. And the second part, the second thing I'm feeling is related, in that I'm concerned that not enough clergy in the Episcopal Church are using the gospel of Jesus Christ to preach against what is happening in the country. And I'm a follower of Matthew 25:35 and following, where Jesus says we are to feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, care for those who are sick, visit those in prison, and welcome the stranger. And so many of the actions that have come out of the federal government so far are in direct contradiction to those commandments from Jesus. So where are my fellow clergy sisters and brothers in using their pulpits to draw attention to that and to preach against that? Yes, that can sound very political when we say that the U.S. aid department should not be gutted, a department that provides food and drink and medicine to 32 million people around the world. That when we preach against that, it can sound like we're being political, but Jesus again says, feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, care for the sick. So those are the things that are on my heart right now.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I share I share those sentiments. The restructuring, when I heard the restructuring, one of the first things that went through my mind is I hope the ethnic ministries department and the racial reconciliation department is maintained. I know Stephanie Spellers was even before the election of the presiding bishop was really looking for her next gig, so to speak, and is off doing work there at a church. But it is something that I'm certainly watching out for as well. What is this new structure going to be, and how does it continue? And this is something a number of us talked about even before the presiding bishop's election. We didn't. It was similar to when President Obama left the presidency. We were wondering, so what's this going to mean when this first Black man to hold the office leaves? Does that mean there's going to be a whiplash effect? We go totally the other way? How does that work? So it's a big concern that a number of us have and still continue to have. And the point about clergy, I think, is well taken too. And I don't know that we know enough about what each clergy's sermon is for a week to really have a data-driven sense of whether clergy are not preaching the pushback. But I wonder if there's an opportunity to maybe amplify that thought and to spread the word and encourage people to speak from the pulpit. And they may be doing so, but to encourage them to do more, because we are going to need more going forward and constantly going forward. It can't just be a one sermon against the pushback and done. My opinion. I think I saw Phyllis's hand up, and then Constance.
Yes. Will, you actually articulated exactly what I was feeling. I have been feeling, and both of you have. I had very strong concerns when Bishop Rowe was elected. I had concerns that I just was not as excited as I was when Bishop Curry was elected. Let's just put it that way. And I really feel as though now is the time when clergy need to take a firm stand. My experience has been that, there's a risk of not wanting to offend the people in the pews that agree with the other political party. And I think we're rapidly approaching a time, and I don't think I'm being overly dramatic, where we are in the precipice of being like 1930s Germany, and where the church has to take a stand, and the outcry and the support that the bishop received in which she gave her sermon at the prayer service speaks to how volatile the situation is, but the essential role that clergy in our church has to take. And if the Episcopal Church does not take the stands that need to be taken to preach the gospel, then I really fear for our future. And frankly, the validity of what we say we stand for in our baptismal covenant. So thank you for articulating what I couldn't.
Thank you, Phyllis. Constance, and then TJ.
So Will, thank you for sharing your thoughts and your feelings. I have been in shock. Yes, we heard that many of the things that are happening now would be happening, but I don't think any of us knew how. We didn't have the specificity that we have now. And every single day, many times during the day, there's one thing after the other and after the other and after the other. And I am finding it a challenge to keep the faith. And I have to dig down, remembering the struggles of my ancestors, remembering the struggles of people who fought so hard in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, and that I come from people who are used to struggle, and that we are strong. And yet it is a challenge every day, and sometimes many times a day. It sometimes is a challenge for me to hold on to my faith. I have been thinking about the second thing that you said about, I'm not sure whether it's the second or the third, but the voice from the clergy. And I don't know, there's no way for us to know what is happening in each of our congregations from the pulpit. but I'm not hearing voices in the public square. I'm not hearing voices from our clergy in the public square. Where are they? And I recently I was thinking about Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail when he called out the clergy. He called out ministers across denominations and said, where are you? Wait for what? Wait for how long? Are we going to wait today until we have nothing to fight for? Because we're close. We are really close. And I think the footing that we can stand on are the Gospels. I'm a cradle Episcopalian, and I keep hearing in church, we've got to preach the Gospels. The Gospels is our foundation. It tells us how to live our lives with each other. And we're not doing it. It's not political. As Christians, we have an obligation. As Christians. Otherwise, what have we been teaching all this time from the pulpit? Now's the time.
This is such a great conversation. It makes me wonder, those of us here in this space, I think we have an opportunity to communicate this to the clergy we know. We talk about recognizing our sphere of control as individuals and recognizing our sphere of influence as individuals. So who's in our sphere of influence that we can communicate this to? And is this something we need to get the bishops to make a statement that in the public square, as well as the pulpit, clergy need to be seen and speaking out on this? I'm just so blessed that here in New Hampshire, actually my rector, Jason Wells, he is up in Concord at the State House regularly. He's the state police know him. He's been arrested a number of times. He's there speaking out. But how many others? And how do we get them to do that? So I'm open for thoughts about that. And I know TJ has a hand up and Meg, but I think this is a point to maybe spend a little bit of discussion on how do we make this happen? How can we help make it happen?
May I chime in?
Yeah, TJ, go ahead.
I'd like to share one that in these harrowing times with these feelings, I also appreciate folks sharing how they're feeling. I felt incredibly unsettled throughout these weeks and before. And one thing I struggle with, and it chimes in with this notion of where is the voice in the square. So I'm the head of a school of 25 to 30 students. And when Trump first was elected, my response was, we need to double down. We need to advertise and say we are a safe place. Over half of our students are transgender or gay. We're a primarily white institution. We have some students of color. We need to let people know we're here for people who need us. And the pushback I got was that if we did that, we'd be putting the students who are here in potential danger because of people either online or in person, saying, hey, we're here. Do we become a lightning rod for violence? And so I backed down, but I have struggled with that. And I have, I went to a protest. I've been to gatherings and speaking as an individual, but I don't wear my head of school hat because I don't want the term collateral damage was used earlier. I don't want any damage coming to my students. I've been there for 35 years and care for them deeply. So I'm struggling with how to most effectively use my voice, and my sphere of influence is not large, but I feel very confident in being able to speak the truth and speak with kindness. But I am struggling with how to do that without inadvertently having someone else get harmed. So I just want to put that out there as a challenge for me. I'm not a clergy, but I'm deeply involved with the diocese. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, TJ. This is a challenging spot we've been put into, but it's where I think and someone may have said this earlier, where we are needed most is, maybe this was a discussion I had yesterday about what is our faith tell us we should be doing in this time, right? We're needed more than ever to be speaking up in ways that are prophetic and caring at the same time.
Do you have any thoughts on my
what was that, TJ?
Do you have any thoughts or reflections on my position and suggestions of how to do that most effectively in terms of caring for the students, yet being able to speak as loudly as possible?
I'll open that up to the group thoughts.
CJ, I heard similar sort of conflict like and desires in a call I was on a few weeks ago, put on by the well, now dissolved Office of Young Adult and Campus Ministry of the Episcopal Church, sort of for campus ministers to sort of how to address this. And several mentioned that sort of they are taking a low profile at the moment because they have undocumented students who use their ministry as a sort of home base. And so I think at least sort of my take on sort of these situations is this is where we kind of lean into being a community. We are not just our individual congregations, but we're a wider ecclesia. So while Rock Point School is sort of keeping a profile of safety, but also a profile of consistent attention to the dignity of its students, I think the Diocese of Vermont can be there for that sort of public witness. There's I think there's ways that those of us who have safety and privilege can sort of step in. At least that's my thought when hearing that. It was sort of, I think there's room for multiple avenues of activism, and because your students need to be kept safe in a particular way means that it's incumbent on the rest of your community, us, to be there for your students.
Thanks for sharing that. My reception popped in and out, but I heard most of what you said. I appreciate that.
Excellent. I think the notion of community is so important. We don't operate in isolation. We operate in a community. Other thoughts that might help TJ, or Meg, if you have a thought as well that would help TJ in his position?
I don't know if it's helpful or not. I'm sorry, James.
No,
I don't know if it's
ahead.
helpful or not, but what I'm thinking, I'll share. And I don't intend to be overly dramatic or alarmist or anything, but this is work that we have to be willing to die for. And that's part of our Christian vocation. And Jesus teaches us that we have to be willing to die for another. That is the greatest expression of love we can give to another. And so I hear the fear. I recognize that it's real. I shared with a group yesterday, I operate with the same fear. My office is wide open, and the first office that people encounter when they come onto the campus here, and could easily come in and take a shot at me, and that would be the end. But Jesus also tells us to not be afraid. And so this is a time, I think, for the kind of witness Constance raised Martin Luther King Jr. I think it's a time for the kind of witness that we saw then. The people have to be willing to put their lives and their livelihoods and their relationships, their friendships, their family ties, all have to be put on the line. As King said, it's not the good people that we need to worry about, which is presumably us. It's not the bad people we need to worry about, but it's the good people who remain silent. And I'm sorry, this is just simply not a time to remain silent.
Thank you, Will.
If we're not silent, we don't expose people who need to be exposed. So what also comes to mind is for our province, we have a group focusing on youth, and might be interesting to get their take on this question, and asking youth, what do you feel we should be doing to support you, to keep you safe? All right, so I'm forgetting, Will, who's leading that youth group these days?
Christian Formation, which is sort of youth, mostly youth ministers involved in that group, is Bird Tracy is kind of the main point person, but Emily Keniston is still in a lot of organizing roles as well. So Bird Tracy's in the Diocese of Massachusetts, and Emily Keniston's in the Diocese of Maine. But their next meeting is in March, so that might be a thing that we can kind of bring to them, to that meeting as a sort of a point of, what's coming out of your contexts to sort of offer to these questions.
Great. Meg, thank you for patiently allowing that discussion, I think important discussion to take place.
Yeah. I just, I want to mention that it's CJ, not TJ.
TJ, all right, thank you,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I was really glad that Will said what he said initially, because I have been really concerned about, well, I was concerned when our bishop was elected, just that when I saw it was a straight white man, I just went, oh my God, where are we going? And tried to keep an open mind, because people that I really respected had a huge respect for him, including Bishop Buddy, apparently. But this whole rearrangement and what you said, Will, about who's been eliminated is very disturbing. And I'm as also very concerned about the gender justice department and the people there who have been offered their support and guidance, not only in those issues, but in how to do resistance, if they are being let go. I'm really disturbed by that. I will say, in terms of your second point, Will, that at least in our parish, and that's all I can speak to, we have 5 different preachers, because we have 3 lay preachers, a priest and a deacon, and almost all of us have been preaching on these issues through the gospel. I also have been reading slowly Hope in the Dark by Rebecca Solnit. And my question, one of the things that she talks about in her introduction is that a lot of major good change happens, seems to happen all at once, but actually has happened because people have been working quietly on it for years. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't be in the public square. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be speaking. We definitely should. But I wonder if there's also work that needs to be done quietly. Like, for instance, I don't know, changing the name of DEI at a place so that it can't be eliminated, just calling it something else and continuing to do the work. And I also, I'm curious exactly what the public square is right now, because one of the things that I am concerned about is that, like if you're writing letters to the editor, will they get in? Because will they, are newspapers and magazines caving? Like when I got my copy of the New Yorker after the inauguration, there wasn't a political article in it. And I thought, what is going on with these people? So I'm not quite sure what the public square is, and that may just be my ignorance because I'm not used to using it. And I think I've said enough. Thank you.
Well, that's a really interesting question. What is the public square? And I'm curious to hear what others think, but one of the things that makes me think of is we are the public square. We determine what, through our subscriptions, through our communications with the media. You know, the media, and this is one of my big beefs with the media, is they report sensationalism because they think it will bring them money. And so if we, the consumers, share with them what we want, then that's what they will print, that's what they will focus on. Constance.
Thank you. I use the phrase public square because I wanted to hear from clergy, not just in the pulpit. If the diocese has a regular newsletter that the bishop sends out, for example, in our diocese, we have that. Every week, I want to hear clergy, our bishops, talking about this, not just in their churches, but speaking out. And I don't think it's just in the pulpit, in the public square, and behind the scenes, Meg. So I don't think it's one strategy. I think it's a multitude. But I'm not hearing the voices. I'm not, when early on, when the big push was, we've got to get these immigrants out. And we were talking about, the administration was talking about what was going to happen to immigrants. And I was waiting to hear, okay, what's going to happen in our churches? Where's the voice? Where's the guidance from our bishops? And it was a while before I heard anything. And I read. I don't pay attention to everything. I miss some things, but I didn't hear it. And I'm on a vestry for our my church. I'm tied into what's going on in the vestry in the diocese, and I'm paying attention to what's going on nationally in our church. And I'm sitting there waiting. Okay, when are we going to hear something? And the first thing I heard was from Bishop Buddy. I cheered, and I shared her sermon with friends that we live in a retirement community here in Peabody, with people who are not Episcopalians. They were thrilled. That's what we need. And James, you're right. We need our voices too. It's not just clergy, it's everybody. It's all hands on deck right now.
And so how can we encourage everyone else, including the bishops, but how can we encourage everyone else to speak out?
Well,
Phyllis?
I think that social media is such a powerful tool. I am very leery of Meta now. I am getting ready to leap from that and go to Blue Sky solely, as well as Substack. But I really think that social media, I think we should be prepared to utilize that. That is a powerful, powerful way to get the message across. I hate to leave Facebook at this point because of the fact that I am part of several Episcopal groups on there, and to get the feedback and the poll and hear the pulse of what the general consensus is. But there's going to come a time, and I too don't want to sound alarmist, but I don't think it's going to be safe. I'm very careful about who I have in my friend group on Facebook. The day after the election, I deleted a lot of my friends because I did not know where they stood politically. I had weeded out the ones that I knew already were MAGA. But frankly, I think that social media is such a powerful tool that we should be utilizing the safer ones and taking a stand. And that also reaches the younger people. And people, after Bishop Buddy said what she said, the people are so hungry for this. They're so hungry for the voices to be heard. And we are, I agree that we are going to have personal sacrifice as well. But my heart breaks when I see the pain in the faces of people who are so active in their communities and in their churches, and they feel abandoned, and I get this sense of abandonment, feeling abandoned. How many other people in the pews are feeling that same sense of being abandoned? And I think we need to notify the national church that this is not acceptable. What the presiding bishop has done with the Department for Racial Justice, this is not acceptable, and the optics on this alone are horrible, given what's going on, if nothing else. So anyway, that's my I think I've given more than my 2 cents. But
this is a space where you can give more than your 2 cents.
But I'm now up to 75, so I'll defer to somebody else.
Others, what are you thinking? How do you see us helping clergy, helping others to speak out here?
I have never interacted with the National Church except to go to webinars mainly, and also with Sacred Ground I've had some interaction, but other than that I haven't interacted with the National Church. Do we have influence? Lay people. I'm a lay person. Do we have influence?
So we do have representatives from our province to Executive Council. And the Executive Council sets direction for the presiding bishop and his staff. So we have a bit of influence, going back to the spheres of influence, that way. The various departments have groups that get together, from a racial reconciliation perspective. There is a monthly, and hopefully everyone is aware that there is a monthly racial reconciliation call. Is everyone aware that happens every month? And there is a Becoming Beloved Community newsletter that goes out on a regular basis. And there's always a desire to have articles written by any of us, anyone who's actually doing the work, so that can be shared across the wider church. The racial reconciliation leads are usually at the call. don't know where they're going to be. I'm assuming that Reverend Montoya, who was just hired, is going to still be around. I believe that was stated that he will still be around, just not in the same department. So that's certainly an opportunity for us to interact at the national level. Dana.
Also, in the longer run, you can run to be a deputy to General Convention.
Yes.
So I've served as a deputy for General Convention 3 times, twice in my previous diocese and once in my current diocese. But half the representatives in the House of Deputies are clergy and the other half are lay. So there's definitely a role for influence in terms of serving on the Episcopal Church level by running for and serving as a deputy or an alternate for General Convention.
And there are a number of what are called interim bodies, and I am chair of one of those interim bodies that is made up of people who are appointed to serve on these committees from across the church. So it's another opportunity to become involved. And there was a note that went out not too long ago asking for people to express their desire to join one of those interim bodies. So more opportunities to serve and to influence.
I will note that Province 1 is relatively underrepresented on many of these bodies. So, if you have any connections personal with folks in the churchwide offices or to the presiding bishop's staff, that's a way to sort of I think at this point most of the appointments have been made, but I know they sometimes make late appointments, and I'm only mentioning that because the interim body I serve on, I was a late appointment in the last triennium, and I think it was because of my work with churchwide staff in the now dissolved formation department.
And hopefully everyone is aware of kind of the General Convention structures. I just put a link into the General Convention website that has all the committees, the structures, what those committees do, how they are supposed to operate, who the chairs are. Opportunities to be heard abound. And this was actually part of the discussion we had with the group that Diana and Dina convened about how do we make sure, and this kind of leads us to our next question, one of our agenda questions, how do we access our churchwide leadership, opportunities to respond together, what's understanding structure, understanding the charges of the various people and various groups, and access to these leadership levels. Because not everyone knows about the ecclesiasticy of the church, the polity of the church.
James, before you go there, maybe to answer your question directly, what can we do individually is what I heard you asking.
Yes.
First of all, if your clergy are not preaching about this, ask them why not. I have served as a faculty member for the Episcopal Preaching Foundation for several years and have given workshops to clergy, including bishops, deacons, and priests around the country. In fact, outside of the country, on prophetic preaching. And so I have done some of the data mining to find out how many clergy are willing to preach prophetically, to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the overwhelming majority of them are not willing to do so. And when I ask the question, why not? The answer is because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that if I preach what you're suggesting, Will, that I'll get in trouble with my vestry. And if I preach what you're suggesting, Will, I'll get in trouble with my bishop. And so we need vestries and we need bishops to stand behind clergy who are willing to preach what may be unpopular in some circumstances and places. That's one. Secondly, please quit Facebook. Please. I quit in 2016 when I saw a 60 Minutes article, a report about Facebook and the Trump campaign colluded. The Trump campaign had Facebook teach them the algorithms that Facebook uses. So the Trump campaign could use those algorithms to do the sort of distorting of news that helped to get him elected the first time, and that continued with the second election. And so I quit Facebook cold turkey. And I used to be a voracious poster of Facebook. 2 or 3 hours a day I was on Facebook. We know that Meta is in cahoots with the Trump administration. So why do we continue to support an organization, an entity that we know is working against the very things that we are talking about today? Why are we still supporting that? So I would encourage us to quit Facebook. So those are two things I would offer, James.
Okay. Thank you for that. It reminds me of we need to choose our battles and choose where we will fight our battles. Constance.
Sorry, I want to reinforce what Will just said. Dane and I have traveled all around this country for over 20 years screening traces of the trade. And one of the things that we have heard countless number of times from clergy, Dane, will you preach? Will you come to my church and preach on race? And Dane has come to many churches. And when we ask them, why don't you? We hear a couple of things. Number one, I don't know how. These are in Episcopal churches. I don't know how. Number two, I'm afraid because people will walk. It will affect our stewardship and people won't like it. And third, it's fear. Those are the things, and these are from all over the country. Urban, rural, north, south, middle of the country, it doesn't matter. Those are the three things that we have heard from clergy, Episcopal clergy, Episcopal rectors. Will, I'm glad to know that you teach that, and we're going to reach out to you because we need that.
Well, I think I've been fired from the Episcopal Preaching Foundation because the last time I presented one of those workshops, I haven't been invited back to give one since. So, and I reached out to them to find out if I was still part of the faculty or not, and they said, "Oh yeah, you still are." But I don't think I've done one of those presentations in about 3 or 4 years. So I think it was even a little too much for the Episcopal Preaching Foundation. And you're right, Constance. The thing I left out is that clergy say, I'm afraid to preach that way because people will take their money. They'll either reduce their pledges or they'll pull their pledges altogether or they'll go to another church. To which I say, let them. We will find more people coming to us when we preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. When we say what Mary Ann Buddy said, we all saw the response to her. People were hungry for that. They were like, yes, finally. Some people were saying, this makes me want to join the Episcopal Church. This is a church that's not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Yeah, I want to be a part of a church that has a bishop willing to stand up in the presence of the President of the United States and make an appeal. She didn't chastise him. She made an appeal for him to be merciful. People will come to us. And I have seen it. I've worked in 4 dioceses, and I've seen it happen every place I've been. Yes, some people will leave. More people will come.
What this is really making me think is perhaps what we might do is to actually try to put on a workshop or series of workshops on how to preach. If one of the things we're hearing is people don't know how, and I'm hearing this in the secular world as well, as I consult with organizations, leadership in organizations about doing this work of inclusivity and equity, and I know they don't know how, and they don't want to admit that they don't know how because they're leaders who are supposed to know everything, but they don't know how, and that's why they're not, one of the reasons why they're not doing it. So maybe we put on some sessions on how to do it. And Will, can we lean on you to help put those together, perhaps?
I can offer some of my admittedly limited staff support. Certainly, I think sounds like something that the province is well equipped to do through our networks and leaning on the diocesan communication networks to sort of make this available. I think it's especially something we can do because of the sort of weird place provinces are, where we have no power, which means you can kind of, where we're kind of there's a little less there's a little more freedom to sort of do things that might be challenging.
Go ahead,
If you were going to do a course or whatever on I mean, I am one of the lay preachers at St. James, but I would be glad to pay to take a course in prophetic preaching.
Right.
And I think this would be something that both clergy and lay Episcopalians would be invited to. I think if we were to sort of do it as a sort of more course model, using sort of going sort of that route, it might be worth looping in, some of our partners at perhaps Bexley Seabury who have experience in actually sort of putting on a formal coursework. But if it was sort of a series that we could offer something like that, I think we could do in-house pretty simply. And if there was financial costs to be incurred, we could sort of work this through the provincial granting structure, which allows networks such as this up to $4,000 per year in costs to sort of put on things like this for the province.
Having done some work with Bexley Seabury and through the more formal channels, I know how much work that is and how much time it takes. I personally am inclined to just do it as a series ourselves, but I'm curious what other folks think about this idea and about how we might best go about making it happen. So Constance gives the thumbs up for doing it, certainly.
As someone who's very new to the getting beyond the diocese and getting into province work, and then heaven forbid the national church, it would be probably less daunting if it was done in-house to make people feel more comfortable, like myself being, taking part in it. That's what I'm thinking.
Great. And I mean, I think that many of the dioceses have a clergy formation effort. We have one here in New Hampshire that Kelly Sunberg-Stevens is leading our clergy formation efforts. I'm wondering if we tap into those folks and maybe resources they have as they are focused on clergy formation.
I would beg that you keep it open to laity, though.
Okay.
And I think that, if we're doing a series like this, I think maybe reaching, Will, would you be willing to sort of maybe offer a session? And I imagine we could probably, as we figure this out, come up with some sort of honorarium system for folks offering their expertise. But this would be, in my imagining, this would be either a sort of Zoom webinar or a Zoom meeting like this recorded and sort of made available to the whole province, but also sort of advertised as happening at a specific time. And that's like a series of these. Sorry.
I already have the presentation. I just got to dust it off. It's right here.
Glad to hear it.
And Micah, by the way, Micah Jackson, Micah, president of Brexit Seabury, was a colleague. Jackson was a colleague with me, and has heard, I think, at least on one occasion that presentation. So if there was a connection to Brexit Seabury, that wasn't too onerous and too involved, he might be willing to be supportive of it. But yeah, happy to contribute anyway.
Yeah, and from my interactions with folks at Bexley Seabury, they're always looking for courses that they can then take and make part of their curriculum as well. So who knows what this could turn into? Carol, I see your hand up, and then I see Diane just had raised her hand.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say when Will Heron said to Will Mebane, and maybe you teach a course, I was just going to say, Will, I hope you would help organize this kind of thing, because you have some pretty vast experience. And Micah came to my mind as well, who was my homiletics professor way back in the day. So before he was at Seabury. So yeah, that'd be good. I'm out here. I just have my screen off because I have a concussion I'm trying to get over. So.
All right. Thank you, Carol. Diane.
So I like Will's idea of getting several people to do this. I would say that to me, there are two things that are important. One is the publicizing this, so it's communication. How do we communicate to the different dioceses so that a wider audience would know about it, or to make sure that a wider audience will know about this? And I would also suggest that that we would also invite the postulants and candidates who are in the ordination process to be a part of it, or, to make sure that they will also attend.
So this is going through the commissions on ministry to let them know that this is happening and encourage them to encourage their postulants and candidates to participate.
Will, is it a lecture or is it a learning, where people will end up writing sermons and having you review them, and how do you do it?
It's more of a lecture, Meg.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. It's an entertaining lecture, I will tell you. It's very entertaining.
It's a what lecture?
It's an entertaining lecture, I will tell you.
Okay, I'm sure.
Well, I got the attention that Sarah, we haven't heard from you, and I did see you turn your mic off like you wanted to say something a while ago. So I'm hijacking the role of MC from James and see if you wanted to jump in.
And you're kind of channeling my thought process. I'm always one, I look at people and see who's not participated. And sometimes when someone hasn't said anything, I will actually call on them and ask if they have any thoughts. So you beat me to that punch. And I'm also noticing that Nathan has just joined us as well. So we'll do some catch up. But Sarah, please.
Okay, well, thank you, Will and James. Yeah, so I'm not really doing anything on any diocesan committees, much less national church. So, but this was publicized through the Episcopal Church of Connecticut weekly email. So I thought, since I do this on the parish level, we're always changing the name of it, what it is, racial Healing Reconciliation Committee. We just started calling it Becoming Beloved Community Committee. So we've done a number of programs throughout the year where we look at films, we discuss books, things like that. I have to say, our clergy has kind of decided that they will not, at least right now. They did, finally, our rector did have to acknowledge that things are happening in this world and that we can, rely on our scripture and our, and that we should, pay attention to today's readings of, do unto others as we would have them do unto us, that kind of thing. It was fairly low key, but finally he's acknowledging that there's something happening, at least in the pulpit. I have to say though, when I go to a church event, whether it's a Bible study or a party, something, anything, this is the first thing that people want to talk about, and that people are feeling alone, frightened, angry. And so we may be having some discussion groups on the topic during Lent, but I don't know if that's even going to come about. So this is all very interesting to me as to what's happening. This is why I came on the call to, kind of find out what's happening on other levels of the church, because I agree with a lot of things that Constance and Will have been saying, that this is the moment to do something. And, I think that even locally, like interfaith groups within Greenwich could have said something about Bishop Buddy's sermon, but no one really is coming forth with any, leadership or so. So this has been great though, to know what's going on out there and to hear all these ideas. So so thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And I hope everyone is aware that, we as a greater church body at General Convention have made statements about what we're going to do around racial reconciliation through our resolutions that we have passed. And I'm always amazed at how many people don't know that we as a church have passed resolutions with positions that indicate what we are supposed to do, particularly around racial reconciliation. So I'm hoping that everyone is aware of those resolutions. We've in these meetings talked about them. I just put a link to the Episcopal Church Archive that lists all of the resolutions that we've passed over time, and I hope folks will share what those resolutions are, so people have a sense of what the wider church has said we should be doing, and the things that we could do at the local level. So I see Constance and then Meg.
Thank you for sharing that, James. And one of the things that I learned a while ago, and I don't remember, I think it was a convention in 2006, I'm not sure, General Convention, when the first resolution ever by the Episcopal Church General Convention was passed, calling on the church to explore their history and have conversations and to have services of healing, of repentance and healing. What I did not know, yes, resolutions are passed at General Convention, but what I did not know is that it doesn't mean necessarily that it passes down to the diocese for the diocese to take action. In order for the diocese to take action, the diocese needs to take up that resolution and pass a resolution that mirrors the resolution that was passed at General Convention, saying that they will do this. And our diocese, we lost 2 years because I didn't know that should happen. And quickly after that, we got things moving in our diocese. So an important piece of information, just because it happens at General Convention, does not mean it translates at the diocesan level.
Yeah, I think that's true. And when something is passed at General Convention, we as individuals can live into it. And unfortunately, I think in many dioceses, the representatives at General Convention don't necessarily come back to the diocese and say, here's what was passed at General Convention, here's what we need to be living into. And we need to get better at that. Definitely need to get better at that. Meg.
Some of you from Massachusetts may know Ajua Wilson. She's a Black priest that serves also in Vermont. And she preached quite a sermon after Bishop Buddy's, talking about Bishop Buddy's sermon and then going on with it. It was a long sermon, but so what we did at St. Stephen's a week or two later was showed first Bishop Buddy's whole sermon, because a lot of people had only listened to the 2.5 minutes, when without the structure what she set up before those 2.5 minutes, I just think you really needed the whole sermon. And then we've showed Ajua's sermon and had a discussion. And the thing that I wanted to say about that, not only was it a powerful experience for people, but I'm leaving St. Stephen's, so I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but it certainly seemed people were coming up with ideas and actions to take, so that the preaching was leading to action.
So what you're making me think of, Meg, is maybe we as the BBC network have a showing and a discussion of Bishop Buddy's sermon. Not that it couldn't happen in each of your dioceses as well. Your diocese, you could put on in your diocese such an event.
And thank you, Meg, for noting that Ajwa preached that sermon, because I've been sort of putting together a possible list of folks to sort of maybe invite into leading sessions of this sort of idea for a preaching series of preaching workshops. And I was thinking, I wonder if there's someone we could call on in the northern diocese.
Yeah, she's such a good preacher.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And I'll in our announcement sections, I'll sort of put something from the work that she's doing into the announcements as well. So thank you also for that reminder.
This is Carol over here in Massachusetts. I will just say also we had an Absalom Jones service that our UBE put on, and that sermon was also, I would highly recommend, to be another really good one. And that was actually Will Mebane who preached that, but it is exactly, I think, about what we've been talking about, is having a prophetic voice and speaking into the public square and what it means to do justice. So it's an excellent sermon that I would also commend to you.
Carol, the check's in the mail, not to worry about it, okay? I'll get it to you.
Thank you, Will. Thank you.
So is this a time to move into a little discussion of what's going on in each of your dioceses? We've somewhat, I suppose, been talking a little bit about it, but anything else folks want to share? What's been going on, what's about to happen, and certainly what's about to happen, we want to make sure that you let Will know about, so he can put it into the Province One newsletter.
Well, our Racial Justice Commission just had a retreat yesterday, our annual retreat. And since I've been talking so much, Carol, do you want to give a 30 seconds on that, if you feel up to it?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So as Will said, we met yesterday along with our Bishop Julia Whitworth. And we use this as a really a good opportunity to kind of do a deep dive into looking closely at what the mandates have been for our Racial Justice Commission for the last, well, really now, better part of 5 years, and say what have we accomplished? What have we done? Where are we? What are the places where we're growing in a different direction, and where something else is being called forth from us, and how does that look? How do we move forward with anything that the Spirit is doing among us? And we had actually a very good discussion also about how does the diocese, how do we engage what's happening in the world today, and raised up some really good, I think, that was a conversation with our bishop, just about what we want, what we need, what our parishes are, acknowledging a lot of the fear, and also the sometimes challenging reality on the ground when you have a red congregation or a purple congregation, and how you speak truth. And that really calls for a very prophetic kind of voice, and can be a kind of scary thing. And so we really had a very good day. And so we have done, as we've already heard, really, really deep work with especially reparations, and with the establishment of the Reparations Fund, of which Constance was, of course, one of the guiding voices, and is now one of the co-chairs for that, along with, I see here, Nathan Ives is now on, so that's great, the other co-chair of the Reparations Fund. We've done some deep look at some of the systems and structures that are in place, including some analysis of where our clergy and lay leaders in the diocese are in terms of their self-understanding of some implicit racism within our structures. We've done, and we continue to do, a lot of work around how to both raise up people of color to be in leadership roles, and how to do training that is both important for those who are not people of color, and also is training that is not harmful to those who are. And so we've been doing work on that. And then we're looking at some of the financial structures in our diocese. And that subcommittee has been, they're looking at that, and about insurance structures, and about equity and fairness in those kinds of ways. So it was a very good day, and I think we're all excited to kind of launch into this next part of the journey of this Racial Justice Commission, and are really pleased with the path ahead, because we really recognize that now more than ever we have to stand up and do this work. So we'll jump in there if anything I didn't say.
Sounds like you covered it. Thank you. Others, what's going on? And want to give Nathan an opportunity to speak. I know you arrived a little bit late, and we talked about a number of things, but love to give you the opportunity to share any thoughts that are on your mind.
Thank you. Yeah, today was annual meeting Sunday, so it was nutty. And we read from, today I brought down the oldest register from the church from 1776, actually. And we read the last will and testament of our second rector, who manumitted Flora upon his death and gave her some dishware. And so we were sharing that with the congregation. It's all written in the vestry minutes. They included his will, pasted it right in there. And as part of Black History Month. But But it's been a pleasure to work with Constance as a co-chair for the Reparations Fund Committee in Mass, which she may have told you we're working on getting established, setting up our parameters, and we have a really wonderful group of folks, and we're excited about the work ahead. It's just an exciting time to be moving forward, finally.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for that. We look forward to hearing more about progress. CJ, see your hand is up.
Thanks for calling on me. In Vermont, we have led and continue to lead Sacred Ground Circles, and Meg Vidam, who's on this call, is a big driver of that. That's been a core activity that's been happening for a while now. We're on March 11th and 12th. We're having a 2-day training for clergy with REI, Racial Equity Institute, and that's coming out of a diocesan review, which highlighted some racial challenges and has motivated this effort. And it's the first phase of a multi-phase experience that we're looking forward to. We are primarily white state diocese, and so we do not have many people of color in leadership or clergy, and so something that we struggle with, we are aware of, and are trying to work on that. Meg, would you add anything?
No, I think as far as the diocese goes, I think that's all I can think of.
And many parishes are doing a lot of reflection, reading, education, but it's really on a parish level, and some are doing a lot and some are doing very little. It's quite a range. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. I can report that in New Hampshire, as a result of our work on reparations and the task force that I co-chaired, the bishop shared with me that he really realized and understood how much racial reconciliation plays a role in everything we do as the church. And we had a reconciliation commission, we had a Earth Care Commission, and we'd had a youth commission that were all working independently to address issues in those areas. And he said, because of the work of our task force and bringing forth our resolution around reparations, he felt like there really needed to be a restructuring of the bishop's office and of our commissions. So he created our Micah 6 commission, one commission, that is just in the process of figuring out how it's really going to operate to address all of these issues, keeping in mind that lens of racial reconciliation. So similarly to what is happening at the national church level, I had a little bit of a concern of, if we're merging everything to one big commission, how is racial reconciliation going to play in all of this? And that's yet to be determined. The new Micah 6 commission just had its first meeting this past week. It's just been constituted. So we'll see how things go there. But the parishes within our diocese do continue. We have Sacred Ground groups that are continuing to gather. There's a new series coming up, new group coming up. So that's going on. And we're continuing to monitor, as the bishop is, legislation that's being passed. We were one of the 14 states to pass the divisive concepts law, a version of divisive concepts law, which has now been struck down by the U.S. District Court here in New Hampshire, but legislators are putting forth more bills that are trying to take it even further and be more clear. So we're following that, and we have clergy who, as I mentioned, Jason Wells, my rector, he's up in Concord whenever he can, being very vocal with his collar on against these bills that are homophobic as well as racially insensitive and harmful to immigrants. And I think we heard a little bit about what's going on in Rhode Island from Dina when she was here with the center becoming a mission of the diocese, which it's always interesting to hear whether something's a mission of a diocese or if it's a separate legal entity, and they go back and forth over time. But anything else from a diocesan perspective that folks want to share, get input on, get advice on, seek resources about?
I can share briefly, very briefly, from Western Massachusetts. So I serve as the provincial coordinator, so I'm the part-time administrator for the province, a staff role, but I live in the Diocese of Western Massachusetts, and the bishop has asked the Reverend Dr. Nina Pooley to be a part of this group moving forward. She wasn't able to make this particular meeting, but she sent her greetings and just one thing I was able to sort of learn from her email to me was that the diocesan Beloved Community Commission and Social Justice Commissions are merging. So I think there's some similar reorganization work on a diocesan level, how best to do this work and how best to sort of honestly to populate our committees with folks who have the time and energy to sort of engage in it. I think some of that's going on in a generative way in the Diocese of Western Massachusetts. I don't have any further updates.
Thanks for that sharing. So with that, our next question, which we touched on a little bit earlier, but how can we access our diocesan, provincial, and church-wide leadership opportunities to respond together to becoming beloved community? I think part of that discussion, and Diane's not here, but she kind of brought this to the fore, and the Advent gathering that happened brought this question to the fore. Is there anything we can be doing to help people understand the structures of the church and how to access leadership and maybe even become leaders?
I don't know if this question fits. So if it doesn't, you can table it and we can talk about it afterwards. I'm wondering if it'd be possible to do a workshop with maybe you and Constance and whoever else on how to start with reparations, because we don't, as far as I know, Vermont doesn't have a reparations committee. And I imagine that might be the work of our racial healing team, which is a tiny. So
How to start a reparations effort.
thank you, Constance.
Yeah, so there is a book by Reverend Peter Jarrett Schell that we in New Hampshire used to form our reparations, to inform our reparations work. And we just moved, so my books are all in boxes right now, so otherwise I'd pick it up and show it to you. But it's I think a very comprehensive book on reparations and how to begin, what it really is, what the areas of reparations are, and how to think about pulling together an effort in support of reparations. So I might recommend that.
Do you remember the title?
I was just trying to remember it. I think it's, let me see if I can find it really quickly.
I can look it up.
I just put it in the chat with a link
Thank
as well.
Thank you.
Reparations, a plan for churches.
Plan for, there we go. And that I suppose begs the question, what dioceses do not have a reparations effort going on? Do we even know? I don't know. I know we have one, New Hampshire, East Massachusetts. I thought Western Mass had one.
Western Massachusetts passed a resolution in 2023 initiating that process. I don't know the status of it at the moment.
Right. Constance, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. There are many different ways to do reparations, and thank you for that, the link for a plan for churches. We did a lot of research. There are 5, and I'm sure that there are more, but there are 5 dioceses who are doing reparations, are a couple of years ahead of our diocese, who we reached out to as we began our work. And so maybe one of the things that we can do if we're going to do a workshop, a series of workshops, is have a panel of people come and talk about how they got started, why did they get started, what was their process, what are they doing now, how is it working, that kind of thing. Because there's no one cookie cutter way of doing it. We're all doing things very differently. The thing that I would say is that you cannot rush it. It took us 4 years to get to the resolution that was passed in 2023 that led to the Reparations Fund Committee. So it's a process. It takes time. And I'm happy to give contact information for the 5 dioceses that we reached out to. Who were very helpful.
In Washington and a number of them. We did research and investigated what they were doing as well. And
yeah,
and Constance, you're absolutely right. The effort in each diocese has to be unique to that diocese. We see that in just discussion about doing this work of racial healing in the first place. Maine has a very different demographic and look and feel than Western Massachusetts does. So Maine's effort has to be unique to Maine and its demographic and its history.
James, can I mention that I participate in because we're a bilingual parish, Spanish-English, we're in a cohort of other Latino parishes in the Commonwealth and in the Diocese of Massachusetts. And we strategize as to how to raise up our people and get them on important, positions of the diocesan councils and standing committees and things where decisions are made about the future of dioceses and how resources are allocated and things like that. So it's a lengthy process, but it's really due diligence and really step by step and trying to encourage folks to become involved and give them support and guidance, because it's the more we get folks that would never have considered being a part of that, maybe, or would have thought it was too steep a hurdle to climb or going to be problematic, and we can help facilitate it, the better off we'll be. So I think likewise, helping folks who are pro reparations, and certainly African Americans that are really willing to get involved and support this. You know, we want to get more and more folks engaged, and especially in leadership roles. And so ongoing effort.
Ongoing indeed. So the Diocese of Connecticut just held a series of sessions that talked about what is the structure of the church, because people don't have even that understanding, the greater structure of the church, and then the structure of the diocese and where there are opportunities to get involved. And I don't remember, Will, did that get recorded? I don't remember.
I don't believe they recorded those sessions.
I did not record it. But I think just doing that, I mean, maybe that's something that we could replicate at the provincial level. So everyone has a base understanding of what are the potential opportunities to begin with? What's the structure in which we're operating? And then we can encourage people to seek those positions that are figure out where they might like to take up a leadership role or even participate more. I think, you know, it's tough for people to think, well, I want to jump into a leadership position if you've never had one before. So where can you start to just participate in the work? And that leads you to, over time, gaining experience and confidence to become a leader.
And speaking of polity, I think these are things that I'm happy to sort of work with folks who want to try to organize this. I think these are all really excellent things that the province can support. I'm going to throw in some announcements just from other provincial networks, just so that you'll have access to that information. They're all listed in our newsletter as well, but you know, if you can also find out some of the upcoming things that are happening on a provincial level here. And I'll say that provincial work is almost entirely developed by people on the ground. I have less than full-time ability to support these networks. And so it's really my role is to help catalyze leaders and support them in this work.
Excellent. So we're calling out the other networks that exist in the province, and I think we here can spread the word about these opportunities, because these are opportunities to participate and find out what leadership opportunities there are, just participation opportunities are. So wrapping up, what do we see as next steps here? I know we talked about pulling together perhaps a series on preaching, prophetic preaching. We talked about a panel on how to start a reparations effort, or our best practices around reparations. And we had last year, a number of our quarterly meetings were about reparations. We were trying to share best practices and what was happening. And it sounds like we can, there's a desire to continue that. So going forward, holding more of those conversations with maybe a panel. But what would be helpful for you for our next meeting? For example, I'd be practical as the chair of the BBCN. What would be helpful for you, for us to focus on for our next meeting?
Certainly, I think the sharing of information as to what's going on is very important. From my perspective, there's so much information coming down the pipeline. It's hard to sift through it all and deal with the day-to-day and all the challenges of ministry today. So I'm not hearing a great deal from the national church on any of this. So if there are ways that you all can help us be aware of more critical programs that we don't want to miss in reference to all of these actions and stuff, I think it would be very helpful. And just the sharing around this table is helpful.
Okay, well, and always recognize that ideas will come to people after we close the call. Oops, I should have said that. So you know where to reach us. Feel free to send any thoughts you have, ideas of what we might do, things that we might share with others, and we'll get those shared out.
Can I ask quickly,
Notice
James?
We'll put into the chat recordings of our sessions last year around reparations, so you can hear what the discussions were amongst people from the various dioceses that were actually engaged in it. Meg, you had a question?
Yes, you said that we know how to get in touch with you, and I actually, I'm not sure. I think I got the invitation from CJ, who got it from someone else, and so I'm not actually sure what organization. You can hear
Will in the
from the
Province
way I'm
One.
stumbling.
Yep, okay. Yep, so we'll just put into the chat the email that you can send to, coordinator@province1.org, and you'll get anything to me, and then we can take it from
Okay,
there.
thank you. Is the chat going to be part of the, do I need to save it, or is it going to be sent to us?
You should save it, and I'll also try to I'll call it and send it to folks who attended, and also put the relevant links into the version of the video that goes onto our YouTube channel.
I can't find save. I've forgotten how to do this.
At the bottom of your chat window, there are some icons.
Yeah.
The icon to the right of the smiley face.
File.
Okay. And then you can determine where you want to save it. Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, Box, SharePoint, or probably your computer is where you probably want to save it.
Yeah, it's not giving me that option.
Oh, well, I'm not a host.
I believe if you at the top of the chat, there should be 3 little dots.
Yep. Oh, yes, got it. Thank you.
Yeah, they moved it, like everything.
Thank you.
So with that, we come to the close of our meeting. As is our custom, we have a closing prayer. And I wonder if I may call on one of the clergy here to give a closing prayer.
Well, since Nathan had annual meeting today and I didn't have to preach today, so maybe I'll earn my keep, as to say.
Thank you.
And us center our hearts and join them as one. God is with you. And Holy One, we are grateful that you are always with us. We thank you for being with us through this very rich discussion. We pray that all that we have said, all that we have decided is pleasing in your sight and glorifies you and your Son, Jesus, who is the Prince for Peace and the ultimate drum major for justice. Now, Holy One, send us off to our various locales for the rest of this evening, granting us your peace and the assurance of the presence of your Son, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit to be with us in the hours, day, and week ahead. In the name of the one who is the light of the world, we pray. Amen.
Amen.